A very good morning to you and a warm welcome to your favorite Sunday morning show, that's Media Monitor, and I'm your host, Alisha Jali. Let's first see what is making news headlines this hour before we get started with the program. Diane Kohler-Barnard has confirmed that she will appeal her expulsion from the Democratic Alliance. The party's federal executive announced its decision to terminate her party membership on Friday night. This after it found Kohler-Barnard guilty of misconduct, but she will keep her parliamentary seat until the conclusion of the appeals process. Trevor Ndlazi has been appointed the acting CEO of the embattled post office, which has closed 19 branches this year. Officials say they are struggling to perform key duties because the post office owes creditors. Well, there's good news for motorists who will pay less for fuel as of Wednesday. The Energy Department has announced that the price of both grades of petrol will decrease by 22 cents per litre, while the price of diesel is going to fall by 9 cents per litre. Well, mourning has begun across Russia for the 222 victims of yesterday's plane crash carrying holiday makers on their way back from St. Petersburg from Egypt. Both black box flight recorders have been recovered from the flight site in the Sinai Peninsula. Russian authorities have dispatched rescue workers and crash investigators to the crash site. Turkey nationals are heading to the polls today in parliamentary elections for the second time in just 5 months. The AK party, formed by President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, failed to retain its majority in June's polls. Attempts to form a coalition government since then have proved unfruitful. Security is the key issue in the election after weeks of violence involving Kurdish militants and bomb attacks that have been blamed on the Islamic State group. Let's now have a quick look at today's newspaper headlines. The City Press is leading with a story of a Durban teacher who gives a tell-all on how he was asked to pay a SARTU member a 1,000 rand fee in order to retain his teaching position. There is a Sunday Independent there leading with a story about how the suspended National Police Commissioner's right-hand man and former spokesperson Lieutenant General Solomon Makale plan to destroy prominent South Africans perceived to be Pierre's opponents. There is a Sunday Times and it's leading with a story about a shocking video showing how police officers shot a fleeing suspect in cold blood. The Weekend Argus leads with a story about the mounting tension at the University of Western Cape that has now created fears of a confrontation between the protesting students and the law enforcement agencies. And the Sunday Tribune tells us about how DA MP Diane Kohler-Barnard's expulsion is being met with shock and dismay, especially in her home province of KwaZulu-Natal, with some calling the sanctions a bit harsh or disproportionate. While joining us today for the first half of our show on the topic of honouring the lives of Oliver and Adelaide Tambo is Mr. Duma Nkosi from the OR and Adelaide Tambo Foundation, and of course our very own Aldrin Sampear, who will be joining us all the way from Soweto at the Elka Stadium for the IFP's 40th anniversary celebrations. Mr. Nkosi, what a pleasure. Good morning to you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, and thanks for the opportunity.
All right. Well, 27 October marked what would have been the 98th birthday of struggle stalwart Oliver Reginald Tambo, known affectionately as OR, who led the ANC from 1967 to 1991. We pay tribute to these political giants, OR and his wife Adelaide Tambo, for their contribution to the liberation of this country and the legacy they have left behind.
South Africa will be transferred to a country of all South Africans, of all races and creeds. That is inescapable. what was happening during the 60s was that the repression was so intensive that the enemy dictated conditions of silence. People didn't say anything, and they avoided doing anything, but they were waiting. Because in the early 60s, cadres left the country for military training. So the people were waiting. Well, the ceiling of repression was broken in the early 70s, in part as a result of the actions by the ANC. For example, the clashes in what was then Rhodesia, in Wanki, where the ANC was involved together with Zimbabwean liberation forces. That opened the gates, and the people began to come out more boldly. This was in 1967, 68. So during the early 70s, there was a growing build-up, even within South Africa, because people had become more defiant. The enemy could not contain the determination of the people anymore. And so then you then began to get the mood of resistance and defiance, which the ANC had inculcated during the 50s. The news of the massacre stunned and shocked us and angered us greatly. It was something we could least have expected after the experience of Sharpeville. And Sharpeville was a tremendous shock to our people.
All right, well, to take us through this discussion now, Mr. Duma Nkosi from the foundation joins us. Mr. Nkosi, thank you so much. Once again, please take us through Oliver and, of course, Adelaide Tambo's contributions to our democracy.
I think we can be able to say we were very lucky as South Africans. We have actually tried to capture the moments and a sense of what the interpretation of the situation was. The most important thing is that Oliver Tambo left the country, but he actually tried to reflect, because he's the one who introduced Nelson Mandela to the whole world.
Yes.
He did an excellent work throughout different countries. Technically, he was the president of the country, while he actually was an ANC member working abroad. So I think South Africa was introduced in a big way by him. And on our part, we actually could see that we have to capture the history so that the younger generation can be able to know this wonderful work done by him. He did it with a lot of ease, humbleness, dedication, and discipline. And on the sense of how we actually got to where we are, he almost predicted the sense of the negotiations as well. Around the mid-80s, he was actually the person who was already preparing. By 1990 and beyond, we were able to look at the work that he did in trying to actually take the process forward. So I actually have a very interesting small quote here, but from the trustee member,
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Albi Sachs. He says, if one could do a paternity test for our country's constitution, there is no doubt about whose DNA would come up. Oliver Tambo. We must guard and honor his principle and transformatory vision and the constitution to which he gave rise. So we're actually truly grateful for the visionary sense of looking at things and the work he did to create the foundation for us to have the constitution we have. And we're actually truly grateful.
Mr. Nkosi, take us through the foundation. Many people don't know what the foundation is all about, and what is the significance of such a foundation?
Well, I think it's legacy issues, but obviously when you work at the foundation, the most important thing, you may actually have to ensure that we don't lose, is that we should actually speak to developments and we should actually work to make ourselves better. Although legacy is important for us to know where we come from, what we stand for, and also for the people that have actually done a lot for us, it will be actually a bad way of remembering them if we forget the work they did, if we actually contribute in a way that's negative and actually destroy the good work that they've started. So I think we tried in different times as the foundation to speak to topical issues. There are two interesting topics. Around July, we looked at the issue of the debate on education. One title which was interesting was Basic Education Plus Accountability is Equal to Inclusive Development. So education and development is actually connected. You can't separate that. But also earlier in July, we actually had another discussion. We actually do have partnership with the Vet School of Governance, where we're actually looking at these topical issues, creation of panels. But one was actually able to look at the accountability for effective basic education. Because you're looking at the child when they grow and how they get exposed in education. But for the future and the leadership that you're going to have, it's what you invest in when they're actually still young and growing. So in Zulu, you actually say, and in fact, it's your investment at that time that will make a difference in the time to come.
Mr. Nkosi, a lot of people, don't know what role Umam Adelaide played in actually with success, in Mr. Tambo's success. Take us through her contributions as a woman at that time, standing by her husband and showing herself and her husband to the nation.
Well, I think the interesting point is that it will be the wind beneath the wings that make the big eagle to fly.
Absolutely.
So I'm just saying that's the real force that actually make things happen. But on our part, I think we have seen how close she worked organizationally. Support to Ubabu Tambo was actually one thing. So there's one example I have today of what was support, because the leader will go away, do work, come home.
Yes.
Obviously, there's family, there's children. That responsibility doesn't get taken away. So Umamu Tambo, for children, for family, she did a lot. But she had a bigger family too, which was actually all the ANC, young and old, because they will actually know that there's home. And obviously, when the speeches were written and they actually Tambo comes back home, Mam Tambo will pick up those speeches, throwing them in the box. And by 87, she was able to actually compile a book. But this is a book of speeches. The book of speeches is actually preparing for power. It actually reflects O.R. Tambo Speaks. It's compiled by Umamu Adelaide Tambo. The foreword of this book was done by Nelson Mandela, smuggled out of prison. So it was actually a point where he actually made the foreword of speeches compiled by Umamu Adelaide Tambo without having known what was said in each of those speeches. So I think we can see the role of Umamu Tambo by 87 when she did this. And she got the book. We're trying to engage the municipality, Ekurhuleni, because that's where they are laid to rest.
Okay.
They've got the freedom of the city of Ekurhuleni. On the grave site, there's actually adjacent the narrative site.
Okay.
The municipality actually did have an official opening of that site.
Mr. Nkosi, please hold that thought. This is getting interesting. We're due for a quick ad break. Well, we're going to discuss the impact that the Tambos had on the country's freedom right after this short break. You don't want to miss that. Do stay tuned.
The main reason for the request was because of the conditions, the congestion that was happening here, the difficulty of vehicles getting in and getting out, and all those type of things. And also the hindrance that it was for those who were passing from either Zanin to Polokwane or Polokwane to Zanin.
Our members found it very, very easy to flow in the headquarters. And it was, of course, a surprise to them, but not that much, but because they know that their bishop will always stand for them. And again, as I say, there are trips from where they come from. As you are aware, we come throughout all the provinces, even the SADC countries. You know, aside that, they must make sure that they come in and go so that they can be back at their workplaces on the expected days.
This is Media Monitor. Welcome back. Do share your views on today's discussion on Twitter at SA Media Monitor, as well as on our Facebook page. Now, Mamtambo joined the ANC at the young age of 18. She brought with her into the movement of the people the fundamental values based on the respect for the humanity of every human being, regardless of race, color and gender, which Matambo represented throughout her life. And we did speak about her earlier on, Mr. Nkosi, but let's continue with our discussions.
Well, I think the most important thing as well is for us to pick up, because there's a lot of things they said, there are lots of things that they believed in and what they stand for. So there's a small quotation for Ubabu Tambo and Dumamu Tambo. It just read, Ubabu Tambo said, "The fight for freedom must go on until it is won. Until our country is free and happy and peaceful as part of the community of men, we cannot rest." He was actually showing the commitment of wanting to get things to a point where we are all, you know, he never expressed himself of race, because even those who were seen as oppressors, he actually understood them to be people who are not free, because they themselves as South Africans, they need to free themselves for the sense of actually thinking oppressing others might actually be benefit for them. Umamtambo actually also on the quotation chosen by the foundation say, "We used to have a song that says in Xhosa, I will not refuse if I'm asked to perform a task." So which means for the couple, the commitment was unquestionable. And in terms of the things that they actually were believing in, they were actually hoping that they do the work for the organization. So it does actually reflect on the speeches as well. Mamtambo was putting them aside. And when she actually was going through all of them, she was able to see that they actually fit in different categories in terms of content. So there were ones which were relating to, you can give a title, Freedom in Our Lifetime.
Those are original speeches,
Yes.
Mr. Nkosi. Wow.
Presented in different parts of the world, different occasions.
That is amazing.
Explanation of how South Africa issues were, because I think for everybody, we may not understand how Nelson Mandela could stay in prison and be so known the world over. The ambassador was Oliver Reginald Tambo. And in the speeches, the grouping by Umam Adelaide in '87, when he published the book, one was actually on those issues relating to freedom in our lifetime. The second one was around the external mission. O.R. Tambo was representing the ANC, but speaking for the entire country. Because when he actually spoke, he spoke for all of us. And the third area on challenges which we actually have organizationally, he was actually able to look at the rebuilding of the organization from Morogoro. There are a number of speeches which are there. So when you look at that, there's the issue of unity. And in fact, as a dedicated member and leader, the issue of unity was what was very, very important for him. And historically, he actually also picked up on issues of the Soweto uprising, because it is all the period when he was actually abroad in exile that he actually was able to work through all these issues.
Mr. Nkosi, look, I want to find out from you, but I mean, you run the foundation. Do you think that the country really does enough to honor and preserve our struggle icons, especially like Adelaide and Oliver Tambo?
Well, I am one of the founder members of the foundation. We do have our chairperson, Mamufrini Jinwala. We do actually have our CEO, Mavuso Msimang. They are actually trying the best they could. And at this stage, we are actually hoping that we can create more platforms, do more outreach to make sure that at least we are able to tell people on who this couple was.
Because I'm concerned for the youth of today. How much do they know about such relevant people in our history?
Well, it won't be a lot, because we may not be taking time to actually, tell the children, tell the different generation about actually what's happening. But on our part, I think we can be able to actually look at what is it that we're doing now. There is some bit of work we did. There's something at the airport and at Watville. I can actually explain more.
At the airport? Do tell us.
At the airport, I think there's actually a capturing of the history. Obviously, I think we know that the international airport is OR Tambo International.
Yes.
And on the basis of that, we think the name of the person and who the person is, we should actually be able to reflect more for those who are at that airport.
Yes.
When they say, who's Oliver Tambo, they should be able...
I just go to a screen and I read all about it, and I see some artifacts in there.
Well, there's good work. I think it's continuous actually improvement with AXA, the airports company.
Okay.
And I think with that, they're actually working with the foundation. We do actually have support from the municipality as well.
All right.
But the municipality in the past week have actually officially opened the narrative site. There's a grave site. Next to the grave site is a narrative site. I think it's lots of important information you can get there. And
where can people get lots of information about the foundation, Mr. Nkosi? Before I let you go, we're almost out of time.
No, I think we did actually publish the booklet as well, which actually shows the information. And in terms of the booklet, we're trying just to say, listen, the life is over 30 years in exile, but it's 1917 to 1993. And in the narrative side, you would be able to find the rural background where OR Tambo was born, the work he did globally and coming back home.
All right.
And actually passing away same month when Chris Hani was actually assassinated. You look at that, his son was actually able to say it looked like the bullet that killed Chris Hani also went through his father as well.
Wow, Mr. Nkosi, thank you so much for your time. So where can people, how do people get involved with the organization very quickly? Well,
I think you can actually go and actually Google the Oliver and Adelaide Tambo Foundation.
Okay.
But we actually do have details we can actually give about the foundation as well.
Very quickly.
Which is...
all right. Okay.
So it's actually Oliver and Adelaide Tambo Foundation. It's 011-880-2680. It's actually www.tambofoundation.org.za.
All right.
That's the website.
Mr. Nkosi, thank you so much for your time here. And of course, best of luck with all the great initiatives that you are part of. Well, that is the end of our first part of the show, commemorating our struggle heroes, Mr. OR Tambo and his wife, Adelaide. And we were joined in this conversation by Mr. Duma Nkosi from the OR and Adelaide Tambo Foundation. Thank you so much for joining us. Media Monitor will be back just now. Please do not switch that dial. It's Channel 44, SABC News.
India has a distinct advantage of being endowed with human resource skills and technology which are relevant and can be applied to the ecological and geographic conditions of Africa. Sufficiently harnessed, it has the potential to contribute to the technological development and socio-economic improvement of many countries in Africa.
Get all the latest news from the SABC's online news services on our website. Breaking news and in-depth coverage of everything from business, sports to politics and lifestyle. Catch the top news clips and watch live streaming of major news events on the SABC News YouTube channel whenever. Stay connected on the SABC News Facebook page and have your say on news that matters to you. And for the latest headlines and live updates from our reporters, follow us on Twitter. SABC Digital News, anytime, anywhere.
Welcome back. We now switch gears and now start the discussion of the student movement hashtag the fees must fall that has allegedly been fueled and injected by Third Force. Accusations of Third Force involvement flew on social media regarding the hijacking of the student movement and the dilution of the cause. As to who or what is this Third Force, we've invited Ntuthuko Makomboti. He's the president of the South African Student Congress. We also have Mr. Mpho Morolane, who is the president of the EFF Student Command. And we also have Mr. Leolo Mpiti. He's from DASO, Gauteng representative, to unpack all these allegations. Gentlemen, a very good morning to all of you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Good morning.
All right. Before we talk about this issue further, let's first have a look at this insert.
Hashtag fees must fall. But along with them, the PYA seems to be falling. Well, at least that's according to those who are in support of the continuation of a nationwide protest. They interrupted the PYA meeting, alleging it was a plot to sabotage attempts to continue with the protest action. They further state in this email, "We have been concerned of the ever-present danger of political interference that has been seen across campuses, but SASCO has rubbished these claims." But the PYA is waging another battle. A voice note purporting further radical action started trending on social media.
Wondering if it be possible for us to stage like various occupations of key points in the country, like Parliament for the people in the Western Cape, the union buildings for people in Gauteng.
The origins and mastermind still a source of much speculation. While that dispute continues, the fees must fall protests hang in the balance, and so do the examinations.
All right, well, gentlemen, I want to hear each of your views about what are your assertions when it comes to these allegations. Let's start with you.
Look, the great Dr. Martin Luther King teaches us that when the man-made laws are out of harmony with the natural laws, it is then the obligation of man to disobey the man-made rules. Therefore, as the students' command of the economic freedom fighters was saying that when an injustice becomes the law, resistance should become the duty. We're revisiting the archives of 1976. And what is happening in the country, it is relevant for today. The students are saying that there should be a change in institutions of higher learning and also in the society. They are calling for introduction of free quality education. They are calling for the insourcing in universities. And I mean, everyone would agree with the call that students are making, because we cannot, 21 years post-democracy, live in a situation whereby education is commodified. I mean, education, it is a right, it is not a privilege.
But you're not answering my question here. What do you say to the allegations that there's a third force behind that has hijacked the student movement?
Look, I didn't hear your question on the third force, but those who are raising the allegation of the third force, and I think it is SASCO, they should come and tell us what is their interpretation of what they call the third force. Because what we see as the EFF Students Command is that you have various organizations in the country who are saying that there should be an introduction of free quality education, there should be insourcing in institutions of higher learning. Therefore, that is a genuine concern from the young people of this country, from the students.
Paul, let's hear from the other gentleman now. Leolo, what is your views? I mean, there's been serious allegations. We saw the reaction after the president, announced that there will be no fee increase next year. The students just went on the rampage. But the reports that came after are saying that the students are saying, no, we don't know who did that. We didn't get an instruction to do this. What really is happening there?
I think the first thing that we have to look at is that these issues are not new. I remember when I began my university career at Wits in 2010, the issue of outsourcing was there. The issue of fees was there. So these are not new things. And I'm pretty sure that if we go back in history, we can see that outsourcing and fees has been a continuous problem. So I think when it comes to the question of a third force, I think that is delegitimizing something that has been so authentic from students, where students have called on government, have called on stakeholders in universities to take their cries, their plight seriously. And I think the problem that we're making now is to say that there is a third force, and that delegitimizes what we are saying as students, that we want our fees to go down. We want our workers who are paid barely nothing to be insourced and to have permanent contracts. And that is one of the problems. So to say that is to delegitimize it at all.
Very interesting that you bring that up, Leolo, because I want to ask Untutu, are these accusations an attempt to destabilize the student movement and create divisions in what started off as a non-party aligned movement?
Well, look, I think that the assertion that there has been a hijacking may be a bit far-fetched. I think what is clear is that there has been attempts by individuals, organizations, and so on to try and capture the moment. I mean, this voice clip that we are talking about, actually, that was taken out in the media, it's not something that we came up with. We hear a student in one of the groups, the groups where the students are talking about taking this moment for a South African spring. Now, they say, let's model it around Egypt and the Tahrir Square. Let's go and occupy, Parliament, key points, and then for South African Spring and so on. Now, these are things that we say. We are saying that these are the genuine issue that students are raising is a question of free education. It's a question about outsourcing and the exploitation of workers. It's questions of transformation in higher education and various questions. These are genuine issues. And, there's been a united front from student organizations, from individuals and so on. But there are people, and we characterize, there are different types of interests. For example, there are academics, for instance, who have been very involved in these struggles. Academics who have written a lot of political literature around a youth uprising in South Africa. And they want to fit their fantasy narrative with this and trying to influence students towards something else that is not in the intention of students. I think there have been students who are supporting, for example, the government. I'm an ANC member, for example. SASCO students in the main support the African National Congress government. But they've been very confrontational to the government. But, when then you start to talk about regime change, removal of government, I mean, there are basic things on how you remove a government in South Africa. You go to an election and that's how you win an election. We don't want a situation where people now want to use this platform, this revolutionary platform. I mean, in any revolution, there are people who want to hijack it. But I don't think they've been successful. I don't think they are going to be successful. I think that it's just few pockets of people who thought they could exploit the situation. I don't think that we should make too much of an issue about it.
Does that answer your question?
No. I think the president of SASCO, he's somersaulting from the statement that was released by his organization, where they mentioned the EFF, another political organization, and the third force. So for him to come and say that, the third force is far-fetched, I mean, he's contradicting himself. And what he's saying about the academics, it is not true. I mean, academics are fighting for a genuine concern. They are saying in the main that there should be an access to education. There's a crisis of academic gatekeeping in institutions of higher learning, whereby we do not see the statistics of black professorate increasing. And therefore, academics should rise, should collaborate with students in ensuring that there is transformation in institutions of higher learning. And you know, some are not saying that there should be transformation. They are calling for the decolonization. And they are raising a genuine issue because they are saying that you cannot transform the system that you do not own. Therefore, there should be the decolonization in institutions of higher learning, decolonization of the curriculum, decolonization of the modus operandi of the universities. Therefore, we must debate it amongst ourselves. But the call that is being made by students, we can't say that people are trying to hijack the struggle. These are genuine concerns. And if there are people indeed who are trying to hijack the struggle, those people must be named and shamed. I mean, we're expecting the
Sompo, you haven't had anybody come approach your organization to say there's allegations that your members have been involved in these type of behaviors?
What behaviors, number one? Because what we are involved in as a student organization is a struggle of students who are fighting for the introduction and implementation of free quality education. We are fighting for the removal of outsourcing. Therefore, this is the struggle that we are involved with. And we're happy that there are other progressive organizations such as the Roots Must Fall movement, which is critical, especially in the Western Cape. And in their statement, the PYA, they raised the Roots Must Fall as a third force. And I'm surprised because in the meetings where all student structures were invited, SASCO was forming part of those meetings in Azania House in the Western Cape.
So, let's give other people a chance. We're going to get into the actual struggles that we're fighting for. But you mentioned something earlier on, and I want Luolo to give us, his views on this. He's talking about this as a struggle for the liberation of students, and he says that resistance should become the duty. Is that your view as DASA?
I think in this particular case, resistance was really something we needed to utilize as students. And what we did as DASO was to take the fight to Blade Nzimande's office, where the main issue was there with him.
And also, please also clarify, sorry to cut into you there, Luolo, what resistance is this that we're talking about? What are we actually talking about? Are we not talking about a protest getting violent there when we say resistance?
I think, all forms of violence should be condemned. But I also think we should contextualize the situations. Like here we have students who are saying, we want fees to go down, we want outsourcing to come to an end in our universities, we want free education. And this has been a call that has been going on for many decades, right? So I think to say to students continuously, no, 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 there's a culmination of anger, there's a culmination of feelings of not feeling included in this country, of not being taken seriously as a young person, as being called the lost generation, these ideas. And I think that resistance was the resistance that was formed by young people across the country. They said, you know what, we are tired. We are tired of not being heard. We are tired of voicing our views and not being listened to. So the only way we can have a place in this country or to have our views aired in this country is to resist. And that was the importance of resistance in this particular movement.
All right. Well, we'll have more on this discussion after this short break. Do stay with us.
We're fully cooperating with the Department of Labour in this important investigation, and any of the people that they requested to interview as part of their preliminary investigation were interviewed by the department. So our people are fully available to them on a needs basis for the Department of Labour.
We saying to the people of Johannesburg, we will move with speed. We have a meeting again this afternoon with the investigators and engineers and our lawyers, just to see if we can map out some timelines.
SABC News. We report, contextualize and present news and current affairs honestly, fairly and fully. We consider it a duty to provide consistent, relevant, useful and top quality information and analysis. Our mission is to provide credible, accurate and interesting news programming, bringing news into everyone's homes in everyone's languages. Thank you, South Africa, for relying on SABC News for quality news output and for making us your #1 source of information. SABC News, Africa's news leader.
Welcome back. You're watching Media Monitor live here on the SABC News channel. I'm with Mpho Morolane, the president of the EFFSC, and Utuko Makomboti, president of SASCO. And of course, we have Mr. Liolo from the DA. Let us, of course, continue now with our student protest. Let's hear some of the views of the students at the tertiary institutions regarding the Fees Must Fall movement.
For us, there's a bit of a division. But for me, I'm all for the protest, and I think it's high time that now they get what they deserve.
I support the workers protesting, but the timing is wrong because we have already lost 2 weeks of lectures and we don't know when we're writing our exams.
I'm hoping that this whole protesting thing goes quite soon, because at the end of the day, as much as it would be good for us for it to be successful, we're also paying a huge price in the process.
Gentlemen, let's talk about how you all intend to make sure that the exams actually come into effect without any glitches. Are those any part of your plans? Let's start with you.
Look, as the Central Students Command team of the EFF Students Command, we're meeting, and we've been meeting consistently throughout the struggle, to take a position as to what should happen.
Absolutely.
Because both arguments are legitimate. I mean, those who are saying that the examination should be postponed, I mean, they are raising a legitimate concern because they are saying that we cannot individualize the struggle. They are saying that it cannot be fair that if a university has, for an example, 29,000 students. Therefore, the focus should be on the 29,000 students. They are saying that, what about those who were ostracized by the system, who are, rejected based on resources, funding, and so on and so forth. So they are saying that in as much as examinations are important to the advancement, not only as individual, but of a country, because for us to prosper as a country, of course, we need education. They are saying that examination should be stopped so that we resolve these issues. But also there's a strong... No, I'm still explaining. There's also a view which seeks to say that we should write examinations and we should take a strategic retreat. And we come back January and take it to the streets. Some are saying immediately after examinations, we should go back to the union buildings. We should go back to the Department of Higher Education and Training.
So what are you saying?
Now, we're saying that we're going to meet and we resolve on that issue. And of course, we'll come up with a good approach.
All right. And Tutu?
Well, we've already released a statement calling for the suspension of protests so that we can give an opportunity for the examinations. You know, a protest is not an end in itself. It's a tactic in a struggle. There are various forms of struggle that you can engage in. Protest is one of them, negotiations is another. And there are points where you have to look at objective reality. Currently, if we continue with the protest, the danger that we face is that we are going to have examinations written in the beginning of the year, and students won't have a second chance like supplementary exams to write. And then you can have a lot of students not being able to be successful. I mean, we've lost a lot of time. Some lectures have not taken place, some have not concluded the curriculum, which will mean then we are actually working against our own aims of opening access, because next year that cohort of students coming from matric are going to have problems because there won't be sufficient space. So we'll be creating a bigger problem for ourselves. But we're very sensitive to the current issues. Now, there are major issues currently. You've got this issue of outsourcing. You've got these issues, I mean, in TUT, there are issues of security on campus, accommodation, all these issues. Of course, there's the issue of free education. That is a standing item on the agenda. What we have been saying, vice chancellors also must come to the party. I mean, government, we have put pressure on government. Government has responded. Of course, we need to continue to put more pressure on government for free education. But at least now we've arrived at a point where we say there are no fees that are going to be increased. We'll continue with the struggle for free education. I mean, this is, there are people who want to say what has happened in 2015 is in isolation from the struggles that have been happening by students over time. I think this is a continuation, and I'm sure it's an epic moment. It's a leap towards free education. But I think we need to now focus on the examinations, come back next year, continue with the struggle, fight for the rights of students. I mean, the Vice Chancellor of UCT, surprisingly, agreed to students' demand and workers' demand in relation to outsourcing. Why can't the Vice Chancellor of VETS do the same? So there's frustration also coming, from every corner to really derail this and amplify this crisis that we're confronted with. We think all stakeholders should start to play ball. As the students, we are saying we want to go back to examinations. Vice Chancellors must concede to students' demands. Government must concede to students' demands. I think that is what is going to help us to go forward. But we have to go back to class now as a tactic, and not to call off the strike. We're suspending the protest actions. We'll continue with the struggle as we go forward. I think that's a strategy that I think is fair.
Leo.
Well, what we have done is we've assessed the situation, and when this protest started, it started with the idea that we are fighting for fees to be at 0%. We are fighting for outsourcing to end at universities. And that was the main mandate that we followed. And 0% has been given for 2016, but not for 2017. So we've asked our structures to assess their own situations at their universities to see and give us a report back of what they want to do. Okay. But going forward, we do believe that students need to write their exams. I personally have taken the decision to not get involved in academic involvement and stay with the protest adverts supporting the workers, because I believe that the fight for workers cannot end now. And if we suspend protests now, we are letting go of the people who stood with us during the fees must fall. And I believe that is wrong. I cannot stand and say, let's go back to exams if that's what we're going to do to our workers. The conditions in which our workers are working in at the university, particularly at VETS, are horrible and horrific. And I think it's an injustice for us as students to leave them.
But, gentlemen, let's have a look at what the people at home are saying, because I was about to ask the question that all these issues that you're raising, a lot of people are saying most of them cannot be resolved overnight. But let's hear what people at home are saying. Mutambara says, yes, the force is called consciousness awakening. Mazwai Voklaga says there's a third force. People have hijacked the student protest to show their discontent against the government. Joseph Versus says, but the leaders themselves have alluded to such, plus screen grabs and voice notes prove it all. And last but not least, outside Teko Spring says taxis and alcohol are being provided during evenings in the communities around UWC. I just want to very quickly your views before we go.
I mean,
we've got like 2 seconds.
We cannot allow a situation whereby students are being provided with alcohol and things like that. Yes, I've seen instances where students were provided with water, which is good, where students were provided with food, and we're happy with those good Samaritans, and they must continue doing that. Okay. And
so it wasn't to bribe them, Leon.
I mean, in closing, what I'd like to say is just to shed light on the workers, who are at universities, and to say to students that we should not give up right now, and we should continue the fight.
Your closing words?
Well, my closing words is that I think this struggle has been a genuine struggle about students, and I think we need to keep it that way. We must not put political agendas and the politics of the day to come in, like EFF storming meetings of the PYA and other people. That's wrong. No, I mean, that is what is actually we're talking about when we're talking about the dead force. So he knows that.
Well, he's denying it, and I'm going to have to referee this one and leave it there. Thank you so much. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for choosing Media Monitor today. I was just with Mr. Mpomo Rulani, the president of the EFF SC. SABC, and Tutugo Makomboti, president of SACO, and of course SASCO, and of course Mr. Leo Lumpiti Daso, Gauteng representative, and they were unpacking their views on the student protest and allegations of third force influences. Yes, you heard it first right here on Media Monitor. Now, this has been a live broadcast from here in Studio 9 at our headquarters. We're back next week Sunday for another special broadcast of Media Monitor. Do find us on YouTube, Facebook, as well as Twitter. I'm Alicia Jali. This is SABC News. Do enjoy the rest of your Sunday.